War powers has been my obsession since I came to Congress in 2013. And I faced off against my friend, President Obama, President Trump term 1, President Biden, President Trump term 2, always saying you can't send our sons and daughters to war without coming to Congress. The War Powers resolution vote that we had today is historic in this way. In the 52 years of this act, this is the first time that both houses have looked at the president and said, your war is illegal and you have to stop it. It wasn't just the Senate voting. We took up a bill that had passed the House and we voted for it. And so now both houses, Republican majority, have told the president this war is illegal and you have to stop it. There are questions because of this 1983 case that wasn't about war powers, it was about something else. Like, okay, does the president need to grapple with this? But here's my argument. If the president doesn't restart the war in Iran, this is a moot question. And I hope the ceasefire holds because the war was stupid and illegal to begin with. But if he does restart it, we'll be in court immediately saying the houses of Congress who have the power under Article 1 have both said the war is illegal. And in the court of public opinion, we'll say this, wait a minute. You're sending our sons and daughters into a war when both houses of Congress, with Republican majorities, have said the war is illegal. This is outrageous. So we've got a court argument and a court of public opinion argument. I think the next sort of legislative move probably goes over into the appropriations and defense authorizing process because the White House is up on the Hill now saying we need more money because of the Iran war, the supplemental or a reconciliation bill or a 40% increase in defense appropriations. We need more money. Wait a minute. Both houses have just said the war is illegal. So we'll move into an appropriations dollars discussion. But this vote today by both houses, Republican majority, builds a powerful argument for courts and also a powerful argument to the American public. Don't make our kids go into war that Congress has said is illegal.
You know, I don't want people to miss what you said about the next phase of the appropriators, because to be very clear, the reason the government has money is because Congress appropriates that money. Now, sometimes this government has decided to take money from elsewhere when Congress hasn't given them more, and that is a problem in and of itself. But is there actually an appetite from senators on the Hill of both parties to not continue to fund Donald Trump's war efforts? Because I think when we get into the territory of like, are we going to fund the military, people, they get a little squeamish. Because then it's like, oh, they don't want to look like they don't support the military.
You want to give a pay raise for the troops. Of course we want to do that, sure. Well, that's a really good question. And this is like, you know, Hill speak that you guys know.
But the people at home care. They're like, well, what's going on?
Like, there's appropriations and there's authorization. But bottom line, these things come together. And the Trump team has complicated it because they've sent us a request for a defense bill that goes through the appropriations process. But they've also said, but we want a supplemental bill, too. And the news in the last couple of days is the Secretary of Defense has been briefing the Republican members in both houses about what more they want and not the Democrats. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I hear there's an $80 billion extra request. Nobody's talked to me about
$80 billion?
$80 billion with a B. Nobody's talked to me about what's in it. And then there may, and that's a supplemental request, and then there may be another request as well. So it's like they want us to vote on door number 1 without knowing what's behind door number 2 and door number 3.
Just give them a $1 trillion budget to the Defense Department, Luke? I don't understand.
They've gotten a lot. They've gotten a lot. You know, I was looking back through files, and I actually interviewed you 10 years. I don't have the tape. I interviewed you 10 years ago, and you were same page on the AUMF, Authorization for Use of Military Force. Nat Cain, your son,
my oldest,
U.S. Marine, served as an infantry officer. Distinguished veteran now. He served when you were running for vice president. Fortunate Son, that song. Well, Senator's son actually had some skin in the game. You had skin in the game. 13 service members have lost their lives in this
One
battle.
Virginian, Robert Marzon from Spotsylvania County.
Talk about the toll it takes as a parent when you know your son or daughter is in harm's way, and you know that that's being done without Congress's authorization. What does that feel like?
I was obsessed when I came to the Senate about war powers because I had watched Congress, I screw it up about the Iraq vote, Congress and the president. And at that point, I was lieutenant governor, like what power would I ever have? But when I came to the Senate, I said, listen, I am going to make sure before we send our sons and daughters into war that we do it the right way, not the wrong way, no shortcuts, follow the Constitution. And as I'm running that race, you know, just in the quirks of fate, like my oldest son decides he wants to be a Marine. So suddenly it was not just like I'm passionate because you got to follow the Constitution. I'm passionate because any kid that we're sending into war is just like my son. My son had 2 deployments overseas. Neither were in battle zones. There were some challenging deployments, not in battle zones. But, you know, if we're going to send our kids into war, I mean, Robert Marzon, the guy in Virginia who died, he was like 52. He had been deployed so many times. He was within months of retiring. You just can't shortcut this. You can't give a president. The framers would not allow George Washington to make this decision. They loved and revered him, but they said the stakes are too high in war to let one person make the call. And that's why Congress is supposed to weigh in. And presidents of both parties and Congresses of both parties have been willing to advocate this. I ain't going to do it. I was governor during Iraq and Afghanistan. Too many of my Virginia Guardsmen and women were deployed overseas. I went to too many funerals, too many wakes, too many homecomings where the leader of the unit couldn't say all present and accounted for because they weren't all present and accounted for. If you're going to go to war, you got to do it the right way. That's what we owe to these heroic young people.
Senator, how do you look at, and this extension of Luke's question in one sense, how do you see 2027 when, you know, ostensibly Democrats have control of the House, and I think with a greater degree of possibility, probability, the Senate itself, taking an issue like this and leveling it up to the point where it's more than just, you know, well, we're not sure, but, you know, we got this vote anyway.
So here's a couple of things, Michael. That's like a Rorschach question. I'm just going to tell you what comes to mind. When I came to the Senate in 2013, nobody was talking about war powers. Everybody now knows the war powers issue. It's like we used to go weeks at a time without thinking about the reflecting pool. Well, now everybody thinks about the reflecting. Everybody talks about war powers now. Here's my sense about 2027. I have a worry and I have a hopeful feeling. If the election works out in the way I hope, I think we will win the House. And I think we've gone from a 20% chance Democrats of winning the Senate to 45%. And the arc's in the right direction. So it's not 50% yet, but the arc's in the right direction. Say we win both. My worry, Donald Trump will go on a revenge tour for 2 years. That's my worry. My optimism, Donald Trump has literally the biggest zone of indifference of anybody who's ever been president. What he cares about, and he cares about a lot, and you're not going to cross him easily on those few things he cares about. But most things he doesn't care about. Right. In his first term, I got tons of legislation signed by Donald Trump recognizing Virginia tribes for the first time. Mitch McConnell and I lowered the tobacco age from 21 to 18. The things that Donald Trump doesn't care about, you put a bill on his desk, he's going to sign it and say it's his idea. I never got invited to a signing ceremony, but he signed it and said it was a good idea. Right. So I don't want people to despair. We actually, like Donald Trump's going to sign this housing bill. This is, you know, Elizabeth Warren, Tim Scott, folks on the House. Yeah. There are things that you put them on Donald Trump's desk that maybe a traditional Republican might say, I'm not signing it for this, that, or the other reason, that he'll sign. So we're going to have to battle to stop the revenge tour. Right. But we shouldn't miss the opportunity to just put good stuff on the guy's desk. And I think there's, you know, pretty good chance that a lot of good stuff we might put on his desk and he might sign.